So once again, in this example, we can see that the device connected to router 3 is a Cisco 3750 switch with this IP address. This is the platform, and this is the version of software that the switch is running. So from a security point of view, what you may want to do is type no CDP run, which disables CDP on the entire router or switch. Now when I type show CDP neighbors, notice CDP is not enabled on the device. On switch 2, show CDP neighbors still shows router 3 in the list because of the timers. If I type show CDP, enter, I can see that CDP is sending updates every 60 seconds, and we have a hold timer of 180 seconds. So there's two things that you need to remember here. When you start up a device for the first time, it may take 60 seconds before the device appears in the list of neighbors. So don't make the mistake that others have made where they enable an interface on a switch or a router and then use CDP to check if the neighboring device is connected, and they see nothing and assume that there's a problem on the link. Wait at least 60 seconds for the CDP updates to be sent before you assume that there's a problem. It can take 60 seconds for a device to appear in the list when you use the command show CDP neighbors. It can also take 180 seconds for entries to disappear. So we've disabled CDP on router 3, but it's showing up in the list because it takes a while for those entries to be removed. Notice at the moment that the hold time is 46 seconds, now 38, now 35, and that's decrementing down from 180. If we type show CDP once again, notice the hold time is 180 seconds. These other values are being reset constantly through the CDP updates. But router 3's entry is decrementing and will now time out in a few seconds because of the 180 second timeout. So there's 1 second, there's 0 seconds, and now after a while that entry will be removed from the local switch. Whereas other entries are constantly being reset. So notice switch 4 was 139 seconds, but is now 175 seconds. But router 3 has now been removed from the table. It was shown previously, but is now not available in the CDP table. So the command no CDP run disable CDP globally on a device. CDP run enables it. Show CDP neighbors allows the device to start discovering neighbors. And notice now we have router 3 back again on switch 2. On router 3, we might want to keep CDP enabled globally, but then disable it on the internet-facing interface. So now we can type no CDP enable. Previously, we were seeing the 3750 switch connected on FOST Ethernet 01, and the switch was using FOST Ethernet 1/1. Show CDP neighbor now still shows that entry, but our router is not advertising itself to that neighbor. So let's look at details and telnet to the switch. I'll log in. Show CDP neighbors. Notice it sees various physical Cisco routers, and it also sees router 3. And what you'll notice here is the hold time is also decrementing and will eventually time out because router 3 is not advertising itself to the Cisco switch. I'll use Control-Shift-6X to jump back to router 3. Show CDP neighbor. Notice the core 3750 timeout is also decrementing. So eventually, and I won't bore you by making you wait this amount of time, I'll speed up the video. but eventually those two entries will disappear. In other words, router 3 will no longer see the Cisco switch, and the Cisco switch will no longer see router 3 in the list. So show CDP neighbors. Notice we had 5 seconds now on router 3 as shown on the Cisco switch. Now it's at 0 seconds. And now router 3 is no longer shown in the list of available devices on the 3750. I'll jump back to router 3, show CDP neighbors. Notice router 3 sees switch 2, but no longer sees the Cisco 3750 switch on F0/1. And once again, that's because I disabled CDP on that interface. So I'll enable it again by typing CDP enable. Have to do that on the interface. So CDP enable, show CDP neighbor. I've just enabled CDP. I'm starting to see other devices. I can now see the 3750 switch on FOST Ethernet 01. Now the router is seeing itself, and that's because other switches in the topology that are non-Cisco switches, which are allowing CDP through. So CDP is a Cisco proprietary protocol and may be forwarded through other switch devices, and hence the router can see itself. So what about non-Cisco devices? Let's now discuss LLDP.